Good morning, afternoon, or whatever part of the country or world you're in. Welcome to the P&G Alumni Network Enrichment Series. I am your host, Dr. Andrea Bowens-Jones. I'm so excited to be here today with my presenter and speaker, Dan Eck, and I'll introduce him shortly after going through a few announcements. All right, so thank you for responding to those poll questions so that we can better serve you. All right, so without further ado, I'd love to introduce our presenter today, Dan Eck. He is the Managing Director of EY Personal Finance. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Accounting from The Ohio State, as we talked earlier, and is a CPA, PSF, PFS, and CFPTM, and a Managing Director in the Columbus office of Ernst & Young with 26 years experience in the financial planning field. Dan specializes in financial education through the EY Navigate service at Ernst & Young and managing broad-based, comprehensive, and objective financial education and counseling programs for employees of large corporations, state governments, and nonprofit entities, and with an emphasis on holistic financial planning that drives participants to take action to improve their financial well-being. All great things we need so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dan, so that you can start your presentation.
Awesome. Let me bring that presentation up, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, and welcome to all of you that have attended this morning. EY is certainly proud to be a global sponsor of the P&G Enrichment Series, and thrilled to be here today. We're going to talk personal finance actions for everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen now, and I'm sure I'll hear if you can't.
Yes,
this should be a fun, you got it? Okay, wonderful. Actually, I do have a polling question just to give me a better understanding of where everybody is in their career path or in their lives. So let's throw one more up before we get started. This one just asks, how many years away from retirement are you? And it might be a trick question for you if you're already retired and that's your first option there. So let us know where you are in that life stage, and then we will jump right into the materials and talk about your responsibilities for the session here today.
Right, we're answering them now.
All right.
All right, looks like most folks have voted. Right, so our results, just so you'll know, 50% have already retired.
Okay.
13% is 1 to 5 years. 25%, 6 to 10 years, and 13%, 11 to 20 years.
Wonderful, nice mix, appreciate that. And so the next slide I think is the most important, and I'm going to kind of go back to those poll results and talk about what that might mean. Anytime I do a session like this, really any workshop you might attend, especially when it's personal in nature, to me, the most important moment of this session is about an hour from now when we're all done. And you close down the webinar and you go back to your daily routine and you go back to the 50 emails that are waiting for you or the laundry or whatever that might be. And it's at that point you decide what you're going to do with this information, because that's where the value is if you take some action on what you learned and heard about here this morning. So what I encourage you to do is to develop what I call a personal action plan, to write down those things that occur to you that I suggest to you today that are so important for you, and then make sure you do them. So post that personal action plan somewhere conspicuous on your desk, on the refrigerator, on the passenger seat of your car, and then make sure you do those in order. Take off the easiest one first, do one by tonight, do one by this weekend, and then continue that momentum. Andrea mentioned the Know Your Numbers worksheet. It's a handout that's attached in the webinar platform. If you want to access that, that gives you a couple of pages full of, we'll call it a quiz, the financial numbers that everybody should know, and some of which we'll talk about here today. And I encourage you to print that off, fill in the ones you know. We describe where you can get those numbers, how you can calculate them, and why they're so important. And see how many you can get, and then use that information to help plan and improve your financial future. Some of you are retired. I think about half of you are. That's okay. I think everything we'll talk about here today is still relevant. Some of it may be even more relevant for your kids or even grandkids. So share this information, teach them about personal finance at a younger age, and make sure they start on the right foot with the right financial actions. So find what's relevant to you and find how you can share this information as well. We're going to do a top 10 today. We're going to do top 10 financial actions for everyone. Again, find those that are relevant to you, write those down. If you've already done something, congratulate yourself, and you can take a few minute break and have a sip of coffee while we talk through that one for others. The first one, though, ideally has nothing to do with money. And it's arguably the most enjoyable part of financial planning, and I think the most important. It's to go home and have a conversation with your family unit, whoever that might be, about your goals. Just sit around the kitchen table and dream about life. What does retirement look like? Or what could retirement look like? What does vacation mean? And how often are we going to take vacations and buy new cars and the first house or the next house or the vacation home? And list those out. It's a fun exercise. It's nice to dream about those things. It also does a number of other things. One, it helps you prioritize. It can quickly become a long list. So we've got to decide retirement's most important. Putting the kids through college is critical. The boat would be great, but that's eighth or ninth on the list. But it's also important that you have the conversation now so that you agree. We do a lot of workshops for what we call late career, and we usually term that as age 50. You're close enough to retirement to get excited, but there's still time to make a difference. And we go around the room and we ask the employees and their spouses, they get to come as well, what's their picture of retirement? We're going to talk about that today. How are you going to spend your time? Where are you going to live? What are you going to do during all that free time for 3 decades? And very often the stories don't match because spouses have never had that conversation. And now they have about 10 years left before they reach retirement to figure out how to connect their picture so that they'll see each other during retirement. So talk about your hopes and dreams, put them down on paper, prioritize, and talk through any differences. Talk about money, but don't talk about dollars. Talk about your philosophy around using debt. It's not about blaming one or the other on who built up the credit card balance. It's a philosophy going forward on how much are we going to pay for college for the kids? When should we use the credit card? When shouldn't we use debt for things? And have those conversations first. That sets up the rest of everything we'll do here today. And that list of goals is what gives you the encouragement, the excitement to then care about all this boring stuff we're about to talk about, which is cash flow and taxes and IRS rules and all of that stuff that we need to know about, but it's because it's going to help us achieve everything that shows up on this list in step 1. So start there, have your list of goals, hopes, and dreams, and then we can talk about money and how we get there. The next item on the list then is to become one with your cash flow and net worth. That's where financial planning starts, always. We have to know where we are today financially, and you have to have those hopes and dreams on a list so that we as financial planners can help you get there. If I don't know where you are today, even if I know where you want to be, I can't get you there. So let's look at these 2 items. You're probably familiar with the concepts. You might be an accountant. You may have seen these just in the natural order of things. Net worth statement very simply is assets minus liabilities. Companies have them and individuals have net worth statements as well. It's simply a listing of all your assets and the value of those things, your house, your car, the stuff in the house, your investments, and any debts that you have, how much you owe, and all the terms around those debts. What's the interest rate? What's the monthly payment? What's the length of the term? All those details. And this is a very valuable statement for a number of reasons. One, it simply helps you keep organized. Sometimes you have to fill out a loan application and they ask for all that information. It's nice to see it all in one place to get a good handle on what you have and what you owe. If your goal is to develop a debt reduction plan to pay off your debts, maybe as you enter retirement, now you have a full and complete organized list of those debts with interest rates, with monthly payments, with the terms, so you can decide which one to attack first and develop that plan. It may be most important, the net worth number, and it is a single number, assets minus debts equals a dollar amount. That's your net worth. And that may be the best single measure of how you're doing financially if you look at that number over time. Our hope, of course, is that net worth number continues to go up. So every year when you create or update this net worth statement, put it on a graph and update that graph once a year and make sure that that graph is going up. We talk to a lot of high school and college students and what we do in EY, and we'll have the same conversation with them. And sometimes they'll come back to me in a couple of years and they say, well, you were right. I did my net worth. And of course, in college, it was negative. I have an iPhone and a bunch of student debt. So it was a negative number. But a couple of years into my first job, I finally am worth nothing. And that's the most I've ever been worth in my whole life. Very excited to be not worth negative anymore. Next year, I hope I'm worth $1,000 or 10,000 or 500,000. That number, if it's going in the right direction, if it's going up, means you're increasing your assets, you're growing your assets, and you're paying down your debts. You're doing one or the other, maybe you're doing both. So update this just once a year. I do it middle of January when I get all those year-end statements in the mail. I update the numbers, I update the debt balances, and I'm done for the year, and I put it back on the graph and make sure that it went up from the year before. Second item is your cash flow. This is what drives everything. I could talk to you for 8 hours about all these wonderful financial planning things you should do and ways to save. If the money's not there, there's nothing you can do about it. So know where your money goes. And most of us don't. We know the big ticket items. We know the mortgage amount down to the penny. But those nickels and dimes and 20s, we have no idea where they go over the course of the days and months and years. And it's important to know where those are. So what I suggest as an action item is what I call the notebook method. You can do it a number of ways. You can find an app that does this for you. But for 30 days, write down every dime that you spend, from the vending machine to the mortgage check and everything in between. Write it down in a notebook, put it in Excel. You can categorize it, multiply it all by 12. And for the first time in your life, perhaps, you'll know exactly where all those nickels and dimes and 20s go. You'll know how much you spend at Starbucks and how much the mortgage costs over the year and how much you spend on gifts periodically throughout the year for birthdays and weddings and Christmas time and other things. So make sure you capture those as well. And now you're armed with really valuable information. If you know where those nickels and dimes and 20s go, you're going to see three things that you can act on. The first type of expense are the ones you can't do a whole lot about. Those are those fixed necessary expenses like the electric bill and clothing and food and the mortgage or rent. You could refinance, I suppose. You could eat out less, but those will always be there. You'll also see some expenses, thankfully, that you can just eliminate right off the top. I can't believe I spend $300 a year on that. It doesn't bring me any happiness. I just kind of do it as a habit. So that one's gone. It's nice if you have a few of those, but you won't have very many. Most of what's in the notebook are those discretionary expenses. The fun stuff, the stuff you don't need to live, but it makes life worth living. And I'll never tell you to get rid of any of those discretionary expenses that make you happy. But we are trying to find a balance between today and our future selves. And we can find that balance in part by perhaps acquiring the fun stuff, the discretionary stuff, differently. We've probably all learned that it is possible to exercise at home because our gym was closed for 6 months during the pandemic and we didn't have any other choice. And maybe now you prefer to work out at home. You bought a treadmill. It was a one-time expense and you could skip that gym membership. You still can exercise. You still haven't sacrificed anything, but you're saving money over the long term. Maybe you can wash your car at home instead of $20 at the car wash every week. There are lots of very personal decisions we can now make if we know where our money goes. I know a lot of you might be from the US. There might be some international joining today as well. Some of what we'll talk about is US specific, but some of these concepts, talking to your family about your goals, knowing where your money goes, those concepts are universal. So make sure you act on any of these that you haven't done already. But it starts with net worth and your cash flow. From that, probably the top goal on your list, although it's probably the most boring goal that's going to be on your list, is to establish and maintain an emergency fund. Critical that you have this because an emergency fund helps to ensure that an unexpected event, and they happen, doesn't become a catastrophic event financially. So if we have an uncovered medical bill, an unexpected accident that we can't cover through insurance or some other way, and we need cash to pay for it, if we don't have that cash available, suddenly we fall short, we run into debt, we lose our house, we run up a credit card bill. Now that unexpected event, which happens, becomes a catastrophe. That emergency fund is cash set aside in a safe place, like a savings account at your bank. It's insured. It's not going to fluctuate in value based on the market. It might earn a little bit of interest, but will always be there and accessible whenever you need it. So there's a couple of considerations here. One, how much should I put in? Well, we usually say about 6 months of what we call your necessary expenses. And if you did the notebook method, you'll know what those are. Those are the first items: the mortgage, the clothes, the food, the heat. Those things we have to have really to stay comfortable and to stay alive. Find out what those are. What would you have to pay for in an unexpected event, in a downturn? And make sure you have about 6 months of that amount set aside, accessible, but only for an emergency. So the next step then is make sure you properly define what an emergency is. If you didn't know, your brakes in your car will wear out over time. That's not an emergency, that's maintenance. So save separately for brakes and tires. We know that's coming. But there are unexpected events like a job loss or a health issue or emergency that we do need money for unexpectedly, and that's why the emergency fund is there. My guess is COVID has caused many of us to either use our emergency fund or realize maybe too late the value of an emergency fund. If we've used it, now the action item is to replenish it. So make sure you do that as well. Now, just as important as was to know where you are financially with your cash flow and your net worth, it's also important to know how others view you financially. And that comes through your credit report and your credit scores. And I put S on both of those because there's more than one credit report. There's more than one credit score, but they all work under the same general concept. Credit reports are a compilation of how you manage money, primarily how you manage access to debt, credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, things like that. Anybody you might interact with financially or borrow money from, or don't pay back when you should, like an electric bill, those entities report those activities to credit reporting agencies. There are three big ones: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And that information is compiled in a report. You can access that report. You can look at it. You can make sure everything's correct. There's no error, there's no fraud or identity theft. But lenders that you go to and ask for debt, ask for credit, are going to look at that report as well. So as an action item, it's important on a regular basis to look at those reports to make sure everything is correct, everything is accurate, because your ability to get a loan or a job or an apartment or insurance and how much you pay for those things is all driven by what's in that report. It's never been more important to know what's in there and make sure it's correct. Now, from that report, there's a super secret formula or multiple formulas that drives a credit score. The most popular of which is still and most widely used is called the FICO score. But there are multiple other versions of that credit score as well. All of those scores work in a similar fashion, and they're all driven by the information in your report. The FICO score looks at 5 variables. You see them on the screen. Most importantly, it looks at how much you owe and how you're doing paying that back. Do you pay back on time? Do you pay most of it back? Do you carry a big balance? How long have you had credit? How long have those credit cards been open? The longer, the better. What types of credit do you use? They like to see a nice mix instead of just 10 credit cards. Have you opened a lot of new credit recently, which could be a sign that you're having trouble paying for your life with current cash? You have to put it on a credit card. So there are 2 action items here. One is on a regular basis, take a look at your credit reports. The federal government about 12 years ago said that all of us have a fundamental right to see a free copy of our report on a regular basis. We used to have to pay for it. Now, through the website annualcreditreport.com, we can get a free copy of our report once every 12 months from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And I don't have to get all 3 at once. So my action item for you is to go to this site every 4 months, get one of those reports. Tonight, get your Equifax report. In 4 months, get your Experian report. And in 8 months, get your TransUnion report. And in 12 months, you're back to the beginning. And you're looking for accuracy, you're looking for identity theft, you're looking for fraud, you're looking for simple errors on a regular basis to make sure that information is correct. And then identify a consistent source to look at a copy of your score. Again, we used to have to pay for our score. Even on that website, we had to pay for the score. Now it's hard to miss. Any credit card website that you register on, any banking site that you're a part of, probably offers you a free copy of your score anytime you want to see it. There are even websites and apps now that just do that. You have to deal with some ads and some offers for loans. You can ignore those. You can go to things like Credit Sesame and Credit Karma. You've seen ads for those, and they give you access to a version of your credit score. But it's one version. There are many versions out there. They all work a little bit differently, but they all look at those same basic factors. As long as you're looking at the same version of your score on a regular basis, notice when it goes up and down, because they usually go up and down for the same or similar reasons, even if the number of the score is a little different. If the score goes up or the score goes down, think back to the last couple of months. What did you do differently financially? Did you open a new credit card? Did you build up a balance? Did you pay off a balance? Did you close a card? Did you take out an auto loan? Did you shop for a mortgage? And you'll start to learn the impact of those financial actions on your credit scores. And now you'll know how others view you financially. All right, we're halfway there, almost. No surprise, one of the top 10 financial actions is to save early for any goals that are on that list that you may be saving for. Those of you that are already retired, retirement lasts a long time. You may still be saving for other goals, even that dream vacation or the next new car, or you want to carry on this education opportunity to your kids or grandkids. It's never been simpler to understand the value of time and saving early. There are future value calculators that you can find on your app, on your app stores on your phone. And with a couple of inputs, see exactly how much you might have in the future if you start saving today and the cost of waiting. So in this example, just an example, we decide we're going to save for our entire career, 35 years, and we're going to put it in an IRA for retirement. Let's say we earn 7% a year in our investments. It's a good average over long term. There's nothing in the account today. We're just getting started, but we're going to throw in $6,000 a year. For 35 years, we earn 7% a year. We walk into retirement in 35 years with $887,000. So if you have a child that's just starting their career, show them this example, and then change that 35 to a 30, because they say, look, I can't afford to do that right now. I have other things I want to do. I want to go out with my friends on a Friday night. I'll do an IRA when I'm 5 years from now. I'll do it for 30 years. That's plenty of time. Change that 35 to a 30, and we just cost ourselves almost $300,000 at retirement just by waiting those few years at the early part of our career. No matter what your age is today or how long you plan to save, you'll have more if you save today than if you wait 5 years. That's not a surprise. Sometimes the numbers behind it are a surprise. So use a future value app on your phone and calculate your own savings, show this to your kids and family members, and make sure they understand the value of time, the value of saving early, no matter how much time you have left. And if you've done this, now you can do some real retirement planning. Okay, let's go back to that 35. I'm going to have $900,000 when I retire. Well, what does that mean in retirement? Because I'm going to live for 30 years, I think, and I don't know what $900,000 pot of money means. How much could I really spend every year? Well, that same future value calculator can help you with that. So let's say I'm going to live for 35 years. I change my investments. I'm going to earn 5% a year in retirement, but I start with that 887, and I'm going to spend it down to nothing after 35 years of retirement. I'm going to die when the account hits zero. Well, it means you could take out about $54,000 or $55,000 a year for all 35 of those years, as long as that's what you take out and you earn 5% in your investments. Now you have a better idea what 900,000, which seems like a big number, really means to you as an income throughout retirement. A very simple calculator, 4 or 5 inputs, you can solve for the other, and you can do some very quick and very valuable retirement planning or saving for other goals. Again, great for you, great for your family members as well. Speaking of
Hey,
retirement, it's
Dan,
still, yes.
before you move on to 6, we got a
Yep.
question about number 4, actually.
Okay.
The
Let's go ahead.
question is, if you get a free score from the bank, from banking institutions, do you still need to get credit reports from the entities that you mentioned during your presentation?
Yes, so I recommend that you get both. And the reason is the credit score is based directly on what's in the credit report. And some analyses and some studies have shown that 85% of our credit reports over time have some error in them at some point. It may be a small error. It may be that your name is spelled wrong or your address is wrong, which is kind of a big deal. Or it could be an error that affects your score because it shows perhaps a late payment that's not true, or a debt that you don't have, or a higher balance that exists. I'll take you all the way back to when I started as a young budding financial planner, and I was curious what credit reports looked like. And this was way in the old days. There was no online access to them. I ordered one and it came in the mail, and it said I was married. I was 16 at the time. It said I was married to my mom because she co-signed for my checking account at the time. When I bought my first house, not that long after that, I took out a home equity loan to build a deck and a shed. And I took out it was a $5,000 loan. I went back to the bank and said, I need a little bit more. Can I make it 10,000 in total? So they added another five. I checked my credit report and it showed two loans, one for 5 and another for 10. It showed a third more debt than I actually had. It was an error that could certainly affect that score. So we look at the credit report to make sure the information is correct so that when it drives into the score calculates correctly. That's why they're both important. The credit report is available again on this website once a year from all three agencies. But some of those sites I mentioned, like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, they do give you both at no cost. You just have to register and deal with the annoying ads that are on there, and maybe there's a valuable ad on there for you for a loan. But you can see your credit report and their version of your score as much as you want at no cost. Again, look at both, but find a free way to do it and find a consistent place to access both of those. A wonderful question. Andrew, any other questions before we keep going?
No, just cruise right
All
ahead.
right, super. Step 6, so now we are halfway there. What you see on the screen here is a 6-step process we use on the phone with individuals that we work with to plan for any goal that they may have. So capture this, jot it down if you want to, leave it up for a minute. This helps you get organized for every goal that you might have on your list and helps you kind of think through it logically and plan for it financially. It's easy if it's a simple goal like buying a new car. Step 1, define your goals. Okay, I want to buy a Honda Accord red 4-door V6, easy. Step 2, what do you need? Well, there's a sticker on the car window that says what I need. It costs $26,000. What do you have? Well, I have $22,000. So step 4, is there a gap? Well, of course there is, a $4,000 gap. What should you do? Well, I could do a couple of things. I could save some money every month until I shrink that gap. I could try to talk the dealer down. Maybe I could do both of those at the same time. I could buy a Civic instead of an Accord. I have enough for that. And if you said you were going to save money every month for a year or two to buy that car, step 6 says make sure you do it. Make sure you stay on track with whatever that plan is to reach your goal. It's easy for a car or a vacation. It's a little more involved for retirement, but the process works the same way. And we're not going to go through the whole thing today, but step 1, I think, is always the most important. You have to define that goal as specific as you can. Even if you just say it's a vacation can be a lot of different things. And again, talk to your family because one of you is thinking 5-star resorts and the other's thinking camper in the woods. So define that goal for family harmony, but also financially, we need to know what the price tag is. So for retirement, in fact, I'm going to ask you to do this with me. Grab a pen and a piece of paper if you don't have one already, and I'm going to give you a quiz. I'm going to have you write down 3 numbers, 3 ages, because this will help you start to develop your picture of retirement and your retirement timeline. So first, I'll ask you to write down your age today. That's the easiest one, and it's on your driver's license if you don't know it. Let's say we're 30 today in my example. The second age is the age you hope to retire. Again, many of you are already retired, so share this information. The third, even those that are retired can do this one. What do you think your age at, we'll say, end of retirement is? That's the nicest way I can think of to say it. How long do you think you might live in retirement? The reason these 3 ages matter is it gives us a wonderful picture and timeline of this retirement goal before and after it starts. So in this example, I've got 32 years left to plan for a 28-year retirement. If you retire at 60, live till 90, that's 3 decades in retirement. Those of you that are retired, you may still have most of it still left. So there's still some planning to do. But this will give you exactly how many years you have left to do something, to save, to invest, and then how long you have to make that money last. The other part of your picture of retirement, which all of us can still think about, even those in retirement, has nothing to do with money. It truly is your picture of retirement. How are you going to spend your time? 3 decades, 30 years of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week availability is a long time to figure out what you're going to do. So you need to think about how you're going to spend your time. Where are you going to live? Are you going to stay in the same house that's now paid for? Are you going to sell that house and buy a bigger one, a smaller one, move closer to the grandkids, farther away from the kids, a new state with different tax structure? Are you going to play golf? Are you going to travel the world? Are you just going to sit on the front porch? All of that's fun to think about, but it also drives the price tag for my picture of retirement. That's step two in that process we showed you. Step two is the price tag. And if you know where your money goes today and you know how you want to live in retirement, you can think about how each of those expenses might change. If you have a mortgage today and you're going to stay in the same house, your mortgage expense goes away in retirement. So housing is cheaper in retirement. If you're going to sell that house and buy a bigger home, housing expenses went up. If you're going to travel the world, vacation budget needs to go up. If you're going to cook at home, maybe the food budget goes down. So think about where your money goes today. Do this picture of retirement exercise. Just sit at home and dream about retirement. Put it on paper. And then think about how that might cost you as each expense might change based on that picture. And also recognize just how long retirement might last here in step one. Oh, by the way, if you're really struggling with that last one, end of retirement, when you reach retirement age, the average life expectancy is mid-80s, a little longer for females versus males. Your family history may tell you more about how long you should expect. There is a website that I like to mention. It's called livingto100.com. There's some ads on it as well, but it gives you a very comprehensive evaluation or assessment that you walk through. It asks you where you live and how you live and if you smoke and how much you exercise and all of those many variables that impacts how long you could live. And at the end of the assessment, it gives you an age. So if that doesn't freak you out, take that assessment, livingto100.com, and see what it tells you. And as you go through, you'll learn, you kind of understand why they're asking those questions. And it's kind of obvious which one, what answer might give you a higher age. So if you're not doing the right things based on that assessment, maybe you start to rethink your daily activities, how much you exercise, understanding that it could impact just how long you might be in retirement. Related to that, I guess this is part of step three. Step three in that process said, what do you have? So if we think about retirement, we have this wonderful picture in our head of retirement. We've now just realized it's going to last 30 years. And we have an idea how much it might cost because we know how much we spend today and how those may translate to retirement expenses. And then we've got to look at what resources are available, your pension, your 401k, your IRAs, a part-time job in retirement, the same thing for your spouse or significant other. As you think about your retirement savings, for those that are not retired, as you continue to put money towards retirement, think about where that money goes and be thoughtful about your savings. If you have a job that offers a plan like a 401k, you might have two options within that 401k, traditional and Roth. One gives you a tax break today when you put money in. The other is the opposite. It doesn't give you a tax break today, but it gives you one as you pull that money out in retirement. That's the Roth bucket. You can also go out on your own. As long as you have a job and a W-2, you can put money in an IRA, an individual retirement account, totally on your own at a bank or an investment firm. You set up an IRA account and you can put up to $6,000 into that IRA, even if you're also saving in your 401k at work. You see the IRS maximum limits right there on screen in the yellow. You can max out the 401k. You can also max out an IRA, and you can decide where you want your tax breaks. You can get tax breaks today with the traditional accounts. You can get tax breaks at the end in retirement with the Roth accounts. But there are different rules with all four of these types of accounts, these four different buckets. The two buckets in the 401k, the two buckets in the IRAs. Some say you can access your money early at 55 if you retire then. Some you can't. Some say you have to start taking money out at age 72, but the Roth IRA you don't, but all the others you do. Some give you a tax break today. Some might give you a tax break today, but depends on your income level. The Roth gives you a tax break when you take the money out. So understand the differences. Take a screenshot of this or a picture with your phone. I'll leave it up for a second. And because this, I think, is a very valuable slide to hang on to as you continue to save for retirement for those that are. Again, if it's not you, if you're already retired, share this with your kids, share this with your grandkids. So they're saving early, but also in the right ways. at their employer or through an IRA. All right, leave this up for 5 more seconds so you can take a picture of it, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, let's stick with
I have a
retirement for
question.
one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we do have a
Dan,
question. Okay, very good.
Dan? Yes.
Yeah.
When calculating how much money you'll have during retirement through the calculator that you just presented, is it important to understand if your money is growing in tax deferred, taxable, or tax-free accounts?
It is, but that's kind of phase 2. So the calculator that I showed is obviously very simple and straightforward. It's going to say, look, if you have $900,000, you're going to live for 30 some years. If you earn 5% in your investments, in my example, you could pull out about $55,000 a year. Now, the next step to that is, what does $55,000 get me? Well, it's going to get me a little less every year because of inflation. And if I'm pulling that money out of a Roth account, then I get to keep it all, right? There's no tax bill for that $55,000. If it's out of a traditional 401k or IRA, it's going to be taxable as I pull it out. So I need to understand that that $55,000 will be taxable first, and then whatever's left, I get to spend on my picture of retirement. So that's kind of phase 2 in the retirement planning process. I know how much is available to me now. How far does it last, and how does it go? Does some of it have to go to taxes? Do I lose some with inflation every year? So I just gave you step 1, what dollar amounts are available to me. If I have a pension, that's going to send me $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. If I can pull out $55,000 from my 401k, I start to understand how much cash is coming in the door. Now I have to look at cash flow. Where are my expenses the day before I retired? How much do I spend on taxes, on the mortgage, on clothing, on food? And then quite literally take each of those expenses. Remember, all of your money goes somewhere. We either spend it or we save it. As you think about your picture of retirement, take each expense and figure out how it will change when you walk into retirement. Right now, you're paying 7.5% FICA tax on your wages. That goes away in retirement. You're saving 10% of your pay for retirement. That goes away when you retire because you're not saving for retirement anymore. Your mortgage may go away when you pay it off. But the fun buckets, right, the vacation money, the entertainment budget, that goes up. Medical costs probably go up. Each expense will change when you walk into retirement. That's why we go through the process. Dream about retirement to know how you're going to spend your time. Know where your money goes and how that will change in retirement. That's your price tag. Step 3 then is how much cash is going to come in the door and how does that compare to my price tag? And that calculator is just one tool to help us with that. Another consideration, so it's a great segue, one of those resources available should be Social Security. It's still around, it still exists, and I think it'll always be around in some form, and you can debate how much it'll be and all of that. That's another conversation. Right now, you have a choice to make on Social Security. You have this choice, and if your spouse is eligible, as most are, they have a choice as well. You can start receiving your Social Security benefit any month you choose between ages 62 and 70. There are 96 months, if I did the math right, between ages 62 and 70. In any of those months, I can raise my hand and say, I'm ready, start sending me checks. You're probably familiar with your full retirement age, your FRA, which is somewhere between 65 and 67. And you think, well, that's when I start receiving benefits. That just happens to be the 100% point. So there's a Social Security formula that says we're going to calculate your full benefit. Say it's $2,000 a month. That's what you'll get if you start at your full age. But you can start earlier than that. You'll get a smaller check, but you'll get more of them because you started earlier. You'll get more of those small checks for the rest of your life. You can start later. You can wait until as late as age 70 and defer your check. And you get a bonus if you do that. You'll get a much bigger check when you start, but of course you don't get as many checks because you started 2 or 3 years later. Any of those months between 62 and 70, you can start your checks. And the longer you wait, the more months you have with no income, right, from Social Security. But once you start, those checks will be bigger and bigger for as long as you live. So the longer you live, the better if you waited to start those Social Security checks. So if you're not retired yet, develop a retirement savings plan. Use that 6-step process. Make sure you're getting the match at whatever employer you're with today and start to think about taking money out. how much that can be, and also any tax issues if it's not a Roth account that you have to deal with. Number 8 on our list, we're doing all right on time, is to develop an asset allocation. What does that pie look like between cash, stocks, bonds, and the particular categories within each of those, but for each goal that you have? Too many folks think of this as a single exercise. I'm a conservative investor and I invest my money this way. Okay, for your vacation money, sure, but what about retirement? What about the education account for the kids? Every goal that you have has money set aside and therefore has its own asset allocation. If that money is for vacation next summer, that pie should be all cash, should be one solid color. But at the same moment, you're saving that way for vacation, your pie for retirement, which may not start for 10 or 20 years and it's going to last 30 years, should be a very different mix of investments, of asset classes, of stocks and bonds, because we have more time to ride out those ups and downs. I can't have a recession or a drop in the market impact my vacation in 6 months, but I can stomach some ups and downs in the short term for retirement because I have 40 years before I need some of that money. So think about your asset allocation, but for every goal that you have. Here's the prettiest slide I'll show you. I think it's also my favorite. It shows you the importance of that asset mix, not trying to chase one asset class that you think is going to be the best, because no asset class is always the best. This shows you over the last 15 years how 5 different asset classes have done against each other. Small and large stocks in the blues, international stocks in the purple, government bonds in orange, treasury bills in green. So you see there in the mid 2000s, international stocks had a wonderful ride. For 5 years, they looked, for 5 years, they looked fantastic. They were at or near the top. You jump into this in the middle of that, you think, well, that's the obvious place to put my money. And that's true through 2007. And then you lose 43%. And you do what any human would do. You panic, you get out, you sell low after you lost half your money, just in time to miss the rebound all the way back up 31%. And you see what that ride would feel like over 15 years. We're chasing one asset class that's never going to be at the top every year. None of them are. Instead, asset allocation says, let's take a bit of each of these. Those are the gray boxes. What if we put 20% in all 5 categories? I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's what we do here. And look at the ride and how much more comfortable that solid line feels. Even though it never hits the top, it also comes nowhere near the bottom, and it's a much smoother ride. It's the merry-go-round, not the roller coaster at Disney World. So I'm going to sleep better at night. And if I had invested $100 in each of these, not only was it more comfortable for 15 years in the gray boxes, it actually made more money. Because that international stocks, as great as it was, look how bad it was, and we get the impact of both of those, and we never know which way it's going to go. It's not comfortable, and financially we do better with that mix, that allocation of various asset classes. One is up, the other's down. We have both. We're right in the middle. One drops, the other rebounds. We're still right there in the middle, and we get the benefit of both. So choose your allocation. If you need to, come back and rebalance from time to time, but there's help out there for that. Many of your retirement accounts now have target date funds. They say, you know what, you don't need to be an investment expert, develop that pie, rebalance, just tell us when you're going to retire. If you're going to retire in the year 2040, that's all we need to know. And that's 15, 17 years away. We're going to invest a little more aggressively because you're kind of young. As you get closer to that year 2040, we're going to change the investment mix automatically for you to get a bit more conservative, not too conservative and not too aggressive. We'll change that mix for you. Even as you enter retirement, we'll continue to change that mix based on your age and your retirement plans. And you don't have to do a thing. You just have to think and dream about when you're going to retire and let us know and pick the right fund. And those target date funds through this glide path, as they call it, does all of that work for you. These work best when you put all in. You put your entire 401k balance in the appropriate target date fund based on when you're going to retire, and you let it do the work for you. Remember that Know Your Numbers worksheet? Some of these numbers are on there, so start to take that quiz, figure out those you already know, if they apply, and figure out the ones that you don't. One more polling question and a couple more items, and we're done. We'll put this polling question up. It says, have you calculated how much you need to retire comfortably? It's yes or no, or I've started. I'm not done yet, but I've started the process. And maybe you just started that process today, and that's okay as well. you're free to answer option C on that one if you'd like.
Okay, it looks like most folks have voted.
All right.
57% say yes, 14% says no, and 29% says I've started.
All right. And some of you are already in it, but you may still be planning for it, and that's okay. Again, 30-year retirement, they're still planning to once you're in the midst of it. And for those that haven't started, hopefully this was an hour well spent. We're almost done. And those that have started, again, keep going with some of the things that we learned here today. Just two more items on our top 10 list. First is on life insurance, really exciting. Turns out 46% of us in this country don't have life insurance. And for those that do, which is the rest of us, many of us have a gap. That average gap between what I have and what I should have, based on my needs, my family's needs, about $225,000. So let me widen this conversation a little bit. Here's an action item. Go home tonight with your family unit, whoever that might be, and have this conversation. So maybe it's a spouse or significant other. Sit across the table from each other. And I say this only half jokingly in the way I say it. Ask each other the same question. Hon, if I die, what would you have available? And more importantly, if you die, what would I have available financially? You need to make sure that there is an answer to that question on both sides of the table and understand what I mean by that. And I'll use my wife and I as an example. Sherry's been a stay-at-home mom since she was 29. She's in the mid-40s today. She's great at that, but there's no 401k. She has no earned income. There's no paycheck. There's no pension growing. So Social Security benefit off of my work record. But of course, I've got a long career at EY that continues to go, and there's a pension, there's a 401k, and a nice income. So the circumstances are very different now, and if we were to die. So if I were to die, she would get whatever's in my 401k today, but it's going to be bigger if I keep going. Whatever's in the pension today, and there is a benefit, but the salary stops, and those retirement benefits stop growing. So she'll get those, but she also gets a very big life insurance payout. So the life insurance amount on me is a much bigger number because that's the main answer to the question. If I die, what does she have? If she dies, what do I have? I still have my job at EY. I still have a growing pension, a growing 401k, and a continued salary, and some life insurance to pay off some things, to make sure the kids get college paid for and make that plan easier. But the need for life insurance is very different on both sides of the table. We have answered the question on both sides of the table, partly with life insurance, but with other things as well. And that made the life insurance need very different on the two sides of that table. So we've answered the question, but in different ways. So have that conversation and make sure you've answered it and you know how life insurance plays a role. And since we're going to end by talking about dying, I guess, let's talk about making sure our wishes are followed. Make sure that you have these set of documents in place and updated on a regular basis, ideally with an estate planning attorney. And some of these documents apply when you die, and only when you die, and others apply if you're incapacitated today but not dead yet, and they go away when you die. So powers of attorney, if you're in a car accident, your spouse maybe is with you, you're incapacitated, you're in a coma, you today, before that happens, can legally give somebody the authority to make financial decisions and take financial actions for you, make healthcare decisions for you by filling out a power of attorney, financial and healthcare. You can choose today who makes those decisions. Otherwise, the kids are in court fighting over mom and dad's checkbook because they all feel they're the most responsible. You can handle that today by giving somebody that power. A living will and a living will kind of goes along with the powers of attorney. They say, look, if I'm on life support, here's what I do or don't want you to do to maintain my my life, or I want you to pull the plug. And the living will can really say anything you want, but it allows you to provide directive to your family and to your doctors to make a very difficult decision that maybe they can't make unless they had a document that says, it's okay. This is what I want you to do. It's costing thousands of dollars a day. I'm not going to recover. I don't want you to see me in that state. I want you to end it if you can and move on with your lives and save that money. And that's the right decision, perhaps financially, but they can't make that decision unless they have word from you through a living will that says that's what I would want. The will, beneficiary forms, those take effect at death. And those make sure that your assets are distributed to the right people in the right way. But it's not all about the will. In fact, the will distributes very few of your assets. Things like beneficiary forms and ownership and titling have much more to do with who gets your stuff, how and when they get it. So look at those forms on a regular basis and make sure that they say the right people. You can change them anytime you like. The last action item is to complete what I call a records organizer and a letter of instruction that you fill out and update it regularly, that your family and your executor know about and know where to find. It's a listing of everything they need to know and everything you have. Here's all the insurance policies we have. Here's where you can find my will. Here's the name of the attorney and the accountant and their phone numbers and the combination to the storage unit lock. And here's where the storage unit is, because if there's not a document like that, your executor, instead of just going to the top drawer of your desk like you told them to and pulling that out and there it is, it's all there and they're done, they now have to open every drawer in the house, every box in the attic and the basement, and hopefully find that you have a storage unit and how to get into it and figure out what's in there and open all of those boxes. You are organizing your life for those that you leave behind. And it's perhaps the most loving thing that you can do for your family is to organize your affairs in a single document. You can seal it if you want and say, when I die, go open the envelope. That's all you need to know. You don't have to worry you missed something. It's in there because I update it every year. We won't talk estate and gift tax planning today, in part because the amounts are so high, but they are scheduled to go down quite significantly in about 4 years. So the estate tax in particular is something that Congress likes to play with and change that exemption amount quite dramatically. Today, we can die with $11 million and we're still okay not paying estate tax. 15 years ago, that number was 600,000. In 4 years, it's going to go down to 5 million. It changes quite regularly, so it's something you need to understand, at least keep an eye on based on your net worth. Understand what you're going to have when you die and the value of that and who you're going to leave it to. Very quickly, just to give you an idea of some of the recent tax legislation changes and planning considerations. Some of these are proposed, some of these have recently happened. Understand that when you started saving for retirement and things like IRAs and 401ks, you made a deal with the IRS. They said you can't touch it until you're 59 and a half. After that, you're free to take it out if you need it. But once you turn 70 and a half, you have to take something out. That's called a required minimum distribution. Several things happened recently. One, they changed the age. You don't have to take anything out of your retirement accounts now until you're 72. And they suspended that rule last year, but it's back this year. So if you're in retirement and you're 72, you must take that minimum amount out of your retirement accounts before the end of the year. Again, the federal estate tax exclusion is scheduled to change. It's 11.7 million this year, scheduled to drop to 6 billion in 2026. Understand that when you're 65 and you're on Medicare, the premiums you pay are now income-based. They look back to your tax return 2 years ago. If your income is too high, you pay more for Medicare every month for that next year. So manage your income by managing your distributions. If you're going to take a big amount out of your 401k to buy a vacation home, let's say, take half of it out this year in December and half of it out in January next year to manage your annual taxable income, because it will impact that Medicare premium 2 years down the road. When you pass away and you leave an IRA or a 401k to someone else, unless they're a spouse, generally they now have to take that money out within a 10-year period after your death. The rules around inherited IRAs and distributions, other than for a spouse, have changed. The child tax credit changed. For this year and next year, it went from $2,000 to $3,000. There's an extra amount for younger kids. That may impact you. It may impact your kids as they start raising a family as well. And for the next couple of years, when you take the standard deduction, as most of us do these days, you can still get a benefit for those charitable contributions you've made. The 300 single, 600 married. Even if you don't itemize, you can take up to 600 if you're married on your tax return if you've made those charitable contributions. And that's only for cash contributions that you've made to your favorite charity. And with that, and a couple of minutes to spare, Andrea, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I know you have some closing remarks and there might be a few more questions. So I appreciate everyone's time. I hope you found some value in today's action items. Andrea, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Dan. You were awesome. And if there are any questions, please do drop them in the chat. We'll take one additional question before we wrap up our final webinar of the year. Can you guys believe that? Our final webinar. So any questions? Well, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
As a solopreneur using a very popular language, what is one of the biggest things that I can do? It was different when I worked for P&G, and I could see my 401k growing, but now I own all of it and have that responsibility. So, what's the biggest thing that I can do to kind of help prepare for my retirement?
Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Still find a way to save for retirement. There are different account options available to you as an entrepreneur that you can use to save for your retirement. And make sure you're managing risk, that you've thought about how the business is structured, that you've managed some of those risks, and you take care of yourself, your today self and your future self. It's easy to save in a 401k because it's payroll deduction when you're at P&G or another employer.
Yeah.
It's harder when you're on your own and you're trying to build the business, and you can easily lose sight of or kind of put that on the back burner. Make sure your future self is taken care of as well. And then
Um,
and then monitor your taxes. Taxes get complicated. They're just not as easy when you're not a W-2 employee, to
yes.
make sure you pay those estimates and you're monitoring, and maybe it's time to hire a CPA to monitor that for you if you haven't already.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted
You're
to
welcome.
squeeze mine in.
You bet. That's
If
a
there
great
were no
question.
others in there, but thank you so much.
Sure.
And like I've said, this has been our this is our last webinar of the year. And so, as we kind of wrap up, if you've missed any of these sessions, January all the way through December, you can sign up to receive our updates if you're not getting them, and that's on pgalums.com. You'll also find links to many of the things that were shared earlier at the opening of today's. You can also look to support our foundation for that end of the year gift giving, those charitable contributions.
Mhm.
Consider giving to P&G Alumni Foundation for that. You can also go on and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you don't miss any of these webinars once they're kind of plopped up onto YouTube. You can take your time, go through it, take notes, do all those things that I was doing today on today's webinar. And also, if you have questions, want to start your own chapter, you can email us at hello@pgalums.com. So go ahead and mark your calendar for our next webinar in 2022, which will be Leadership Learning Post P&G Adapting to Private Industry. And our guest speaker for this webinar will be Daniel Rizak, CEO of Totes Isotoner. And with that being said, on behalf of the entire production team for the P&G webinar alumni webinar series, I wish you the best, happiest, safest holiday, and hope to see you in 2022 for our next webinar. Everybody, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.